It is never cold here. The temperature never drops below +17 in winter and goes above +32 in summer. Everyone has heard about natural disasters, especially global warming. However, many still believe that there is nothing wrong with the planet getting hotter. But in reality, for example, for the Maldives, it could mean the end very soon. Due to the melting glaciers, the water in the world ocean will increase, which means that part of the coastal territory will be flooded. And the Maldives are among the first on the list to be flooded. Global warming has become the main challenge for humanity in the 21st century. Melting glaciers lead to a rise in sea levels, putting cities and entire countries at risk. One of the targets for the natural disaster is the Maldives, where residents occasionally receive flood warnings. Every year, the islands are slowly going underwater, and by the end of the century, they could completely sink. While the rich and celebrities spend large sums of money at local resorts and enjoy carefree vacations, locals are struggling with drought and trying to find at least a few liters of clean water. The Republic of Maldives, more commonly referred to as the Maldives, is located south of India and Sri Lanka, in the Indian Ocean. The country consists of a chain of almost 1,200 coral islands, grouped into atolls, coral formations that can either form a continuous or fragmented ring. Only 200 are considered inhabited. Today, these islands with their pristine white sand beaches make up the largest coral state in the world, covering an area of 300 square kilometers. As of October 2022, the Maldives had a population of over 540,000 people. The majority of the population lives in villages and engages in agriculture, including fishing, vegetable and fruit cultivation, as well as coconut harvesting. In the mass consciousness, Maldives is considered a paradise place with luxurious nature, but such ideas do not always correspond to reality. The capital city of Malé quickly dispels the established myth. The city is almost completely covered with garbage, and a large number of people and vehicles move chaotically through its narrow streets. The Maldives largely relies on premium tourism. Today, it accounts for 28% of the country's GDP. A trip to the Maldives cannot be considered a budget option. A night on the islands can cost several $1,000s for two people, and the cost of a whole tour can reach tens of thousands of dollars. The Maldives is a popular vacation destination among the wealthy and celebrities. However, in the coming decades, the children and grandchildren of celebrities will have to find new places to vacation, as their favorite resort is predicted to have a less than bright future. According to the forecasts of the authorities, by the end of the 21st century, the islands will go underwater. The Maldivian Minister of Environment, Climate Change and Technology, Emanas Shona, has repeatedly raised such warnings. The peculiarity of the Maldives lies in its position relative to sea level. The state is considered the lowest in the world, with its highest point being only 2.4 meters above sea level. The problem is getting worse every year, and currently, 80% of all islands are located just 1 meter above sea level. Scientists predict that by 2100, sea levels will rise by 1.1 meters, effectively flooding the Maldives. The state is already facing natural disasters. 90% of the territory has been affected by floods, and 97% has experienced coastal erosion. In the current situation, Shoma said, "We will not survive. The climate is really changing, and we are the most vulnerable country in the world. There is no land higher for us. There is only us, only our islands in the sea. Theoretically, they should feel the rising waters first." To prevent this from happening, the Maldivians, with the help of the Japanese, have constructed an artificially elevated atoll above the abyss and built a protective wall around their capital. However, the danger to the islanders living there has not diminished. That's what the authorities believe. A representative of the Maldives at a climate conference in Glasgow described global warming as an existential threat to his country. In this regard, in 2008, the Maldivian government made the decision to set aside a portion of the national income from tourism each year into a special fund, the proceeds of which would be used for the purchase of new territories to the state and the resettlement of people. The Maldivian authorities blame the Group of 20 for the country's climate change, as they account for 75% of harmful emissions. Resolving the issue of global warming requires joint efforts from the entire world. The islands emphasize the need to adhere to a carbon-neutral policy and commit to decarbonization. However, there is another opinion. Erosion in the Maldives is due to human intervention. Each year, the number of ports, docks, and water transport increases on the islands, leading to soil erosion. Scientists have developed a method that will help prevent the catastrophe. The method involves allowing sand to naturally accumulate with the help of ocean currents, thereby raising the islands above the water level. The project has been called Growing Islands. There are now 3 planned approaches to sea level rise and storm surges. The first approach is to ignore the problem. The second approach involves building walls, dams, barriers, and docks to regulate water flow. Experts believe that this method is doomed to fail, is very energy intensive, and must be used indefinitely. Even this method is terrible because it harms marine life. The 1,192 coral islands forming the 26 atolls of the Maldives are rapidly sinking into the Arabian Sea, says an expert. In the 2007 2007 report by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, it was stated that by 2100, sea levels in the country will rise by approximately 23 inches. This means that 200 islands will go underwater, and the rest will be very badly affected. To prevent this from happening, experts have already started testing a system of underwater structures that resemble two crossed walls. The structure will be positioned in a specific way on the seabed relative to the current. It will use the power of the waves to collect and accumulate sand in different places. Over the next year, scientists plan to collect data from the first test structure and install 2 additional ones. These will help researchers understand how seasonal and geographical variations impact the sand accumulation system. If all goes well, the experts will have information on how to most effectively install the structures on a larger scale. Meanwhile, at least 8 islands in the Pacific Ocean have already gone underwater due to global warming. A team of researchers conducted coastal surveys, interviewed local residents, and examined satellite images of several islands in Micronesia. Locals reported the disappearance of 2 islands, Kepada and Peling and Nalapenlod. The latter was famous for being the site of a battle between warring military leaders in 1850. Both islands disappeared during the 20th century. Aerial photos show that 6 more islands went underwater between 2007 and 2014. Each of them was about 100 square meters in size. Scientists are sounding the alarm. The disappearance of islands around the world will continue due to rising sea levels. In 2016, researchers from the University of Queensland in Australia concluded that 5 Solomon Islands disappeared since the mid-20th century. Each year, the water level along their shores rises by half a centimeter. According to the estimates of some climatologists, this poses a threat to dwarf states that are separated from the mainland. Others believe that global warming is being used for political purposes. The Maldives attracts over 1 million visitors annually. From January 1 to November 9 of last year, more than 1 million foreign tourists vacationed in the Maldives. The first place in attendance of Maldives is held by India, from which 238,000 tourists came only last year. The Indian market share of tourist flow amounted to 22.5%. The second place in terms of visitors is occupied by tourists from Russia. For example, last year the Maldives was visited by 194,000 Russian tourists, and Russia itself accounts for 18.4% of the Maldivian tourism market share. The tourist flow from Russia to the Maldives in 2022 increased more than 3 times, from 63,000 to 194,000 people, which is a colossal amount. The total number of foreign tourists increased by 144% compared to last year. In addition to Russia, Kazakhstan and Ukraine were also among the fastest-growing markets. The Maldives consistently attract thousands of tourists each year, but not all of them have thought why the islands will soon disappear as they gradually sink underwater. There is a high probability that the next generations of vacationers will simply be deprived of this opportunity. The climate condition of the tiny nations of Oceania is almost entirely dependent on world leaders with a large number of industries that emit tons of harmful substances into the atmosphere every second. These island nations account for only 0.03% of all emissions. William Burns, an American professor of environmental law, citing a statement by an unknown author. The ironic and tragic aspect of the environmental crisis caused by greenhouse gas emissions is that the parts of the world that bear the least responsibility for global warming are the first to suffer from its devastating consequences. However, even the most developed countries in the world will not be able to avoid climate disasters. By 2030, many will experience terrible floods, and in the coming decades, the world ocean will reach Venice and London. Global warming will not bypass the United States and Russia, where millions of hectares of forests have already destroyed by wildfires. The climate crisis requires world leaders, including major industrial nations, to take responsibility for their emissions and work towards solving the devastating effects. It is a race against time to protect not only the Maldives, but also other vulnerable regions around the world from the catastrophic impacts of climate change. Write in the comments what do you think about the future of the Maldives. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it and subscribe to the Karo Show channel. Also watch our previous videos. Goodbye.